Hey everybody, in this week's Quick Tip, we're going to be looking at the top 5 riffs from the band Coldplay. I picked 5 of my favorite songs by this group, and today we're going to be looking at what makes these songs so catchy and memorable. We'll talk about the musical characteristics like melody, rhythm, and also harmony, and my goal is really to help you appreciate these songs on a deeper level and maybe discover some things that you hadn't thought about before. So, you ready to get started with number 1? Let's go! Alright, so let's jump in with riff number 1, and I'm sure you can guess it. Alright, so the first riff we're going to talk about today is Clocks from their album A Rush of Blood to the Head. Even though this song came out almost 2 decades ago, everybody remembers this song. And so before we talk about what makes it musically interesting, I just want to ask the question, what is a hook? Okay, a hook is what makes the song catchy and memorable. And when we look at the music, there's always some element of repetition. It could be in the melody, it could be in the harmony, or in the rhythm, but the hook is what basically gets stuck in your ear, okay? So let's go ahead and break this down here. We have this running 8th note line. We're in 4/4, so let's look at the right hand. That right there is an E flat major chord, and we are actually playing that in the first inversion, so we have E flat, B flat, G. And talking about hooks, what's interesting here is the rhythm, okay? So let's talk about that for a moment. We have this descending pattern that repeats, outlining the chord. But what's interesting about it is that even though we're in 4/4, we are creating these divisions of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, we don't have room to put another 8th note at the end because we've reached the end of the bar because we're in 4/4 time. So this 3-3-2 pattern is what makes the song really memorable. And that continues through the entire song. Right? Then you have the bass and the drums. This 3-3-2 pattern is actually popular in a lot of Latin styles of music where you have this 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Perhaps you've heard a bass line that sounds something like this. So this rhythmic pattern gives it that type of a feeling. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about the harmony here. So we have that E flat major chord. Then we have a B flat minor chord that looks like this. Okay, and the notes are D flat, B flat, and F. And we repeat the same pattern. We repeat that one more time. And then we go to an F minor chord. Okay, the notes there are C, A flat, and F. All right, so in the left hand, what we're doing is we're just outlining the same chord shapes together. And you'll hear me putting a little bit of emphasis on the first note of that grouping of 3. Okay, this is very atmospheric, so yes, you can play the pedal while you do this. But now what I want to do is also talk about where these chords are coming from, because if you look at the key signature, we've got 4 flats, which, if you know a little bit of music theory, that would be A flat major. So what's going on here? We've got E flat, okay, as our first chord, then B flat minor, F, but it sounds like our home key is that E flat chord. So this is really interesting. What's happening here is that we are actually using a mode. Rather than treating the A flat as the 1, we're treating the E flat as the 1 chord, okay, the point of arrival. And so what's happening here is that we're using the notes of an A flat major scale, but starting on the E flat. And that right there, that flat 7, is what creates that minor sound on the 5 chord. So we call that the Mixolydian mode. It's the 5th mode with that flat 7. And so if we were to talk about the Roman numerals, E flat would be our 1, B flat minor would be our 5. Typically we would expect it to be major, but it's Mixolydian, so it's minor, and then we go to that minor 2. It gives it a really sort of unexpected sound, and I can't think of a lot of pop songs that are written in that Mixolydian mode off the top of my head. So again, a great song. One last thing that I'll say about this is that the melody is also one of the things that really delivers this song. Take a listen to it. It's a great example of what we call a sequence in music. A sequence is when you have a melodic pattern or a harmonic pattern that's repeated by a step, or it could be by a certain interval. Do you hear that? We're going to take that same melodic shape and repeat it down a step. Isn't that neat? So as you can see, there's a lot of interesting things happening here musically. Let's go ahead and move on now to our next riff. All right, the next one is The Scientist. One of the most hauntingly beautiful piano ballads, especially with Chris Martin singing in his falsetto. So there's a few things we're going to talk about here that makes this musical riff really interesting and beautiful as well. We're going to talk about seventh chords, suspensions, and also voice leading. So first of all, let's look at the key that we're in here. We've got 1 flat, and in this case, the first chord we're starting on is D minor. So we're in the key of D minor here. But what's interesting here is that we have this other note down here, which we call the 7th. Okay, this is the minor 7, which rather than just being a plain minor chord now, it really changes the quality of it, doesn't it? We call this the 7th, okay, and it really just gives it a different mood, a different quality. Then we go to a B flat chord, right? And in this case, this would be the 6, right, in the key of D minor. Nice little melodic fragment there. Then we go to an F major chord, and then we go to an F sus2. Okay, so an F sus2, basically if this is an F major chord, the 2 is this note right here, the G. And again, whenever 2 notes are right next to each other, it creates that rub, it creates a little bit of that dissonance, but it's a beautiful dissonance, right? It gives the music just character, and really it expresses the lyric of this song. So we have this F chord moving down a step to this F sus2, a beautiful chord. So now I want to bring your attention to the way that these chords are voiced or played, because you'll notice that they have their own melody. All good accompaniments have their own sense of melody. We call this voice leading, the way that chords move smoothly from one to the next. So right, there's this underlying melody here that the melody of the actual song then comes in on, right? And so this is another part of this song, and another reason why this riff is so beautifully written. It's the way that the chords are voiced, the way that these notes are written, that really just sets a beautiful backdrop for the lyric. I do want to talk about the melody for just a moment here. And again, what you'll notice is that there's this element of repetition, right? All good pop songs have repetition, and so I love when the chords change underneath the same repeating melody, because the color of the melody changes depending on the chord underneath. So right here, we're starting on the 3rd, but then we have this, what we call a 9, and then the 7 based on this B flat chord. Right, so the 3rd of the F, another great example of the brilliance of Coldplay and their songwriting. Let's go ahead and look at our next one. All right, up next we have Fix You from the 3rd studio album, X and Y. such a powerful introduction to a song that speaks about grief and ultimately has a very uplifting message. So I'm going to switch over to the piano and we're going to unpack this layer by layer. I first just want to look at the top note of this. And what you'll notice is that it's the same note throughout. In half notes, right? It almost sort of feels like a bell tolling. There's this just steady beat, right? Now underneath that, take a look at this melody. You'll notice that the melody underneath is descending. And this is something that's been used in music for hundreds of years, this descending slow melody to express that sense of grief and loss. Now if we play the full chord, we have an E flat, then we have a G minor chord with this flat 6, and then we have a C minor 7 chord, G, B flat, C, E flat, and then the last one is this B flat chord with the add 4. But the more important thing is to be aware of how we have that descending motion going on. We also have this beautiful melodic bass line, which I'll play by itself. That melody really captures that there's something going on underneath, right? If we put the two hands together, then we have the melody that comes in. We know later in this song we go into this really powerful and cathartic bridge which sounds like this. So there are so many great Coldplay songs to choose from, but this was one of my favorites, and so we had to put it on the list. Let's look at which one we have next. Viva la Vida! It's kind of hard to do it justice on the piano because I don't have the strings and the timpani and the church bells and that kick drum, but we all know and love this song. This is one of Coldplay's biggest commercial hits. I believe it won Song of the Year at the Grammys the year it was released, so just a fantastic song. The first thing I want to talk about with this is the rhythm. Okay, what you'll notice is that this song has a lot of syncopation. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. That groove is what we love about the song, and so syncopation means that you are accenting the offbeats. Let me demonstrate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. It's easier to get a sense for it if I were to play it with a kick drum, so I'll try it with my voice. When you hear it against a steady beat, you're able to see how that syncopation really makes the music dance, right? So I always encourage people to count the rhythms, right? And to feel where the syncopation is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4. We're accenting the end of 4, the end of 1, and the end of 2. So let's talk about the harmony here. We have a D flat major chord, although we don't have the third in there, so it's more of sort of like a power chord type of thing with a 1, 5, 1. But we're in the key of A flat. So D flat would be our 4. Then we go to this A flat sus over E flat. Yeah, that's one way of saying it. The way that I would interpret it though is more as an E flat chord with the sus 4 and with the flat 7. And then we go to our A flat chord, which is our 1, and then to our F minor chord, which is our 6. So 4, 5, 1, 6. And once you get that rhythm with it, you'll just want to play it over and over and over. Such a great song. All right, well, that brings us to our last one. Let's find out what it is. And the last one we're going to talk about today is Sky Full of Stars from the 6th studio album, Ghost Stories. This song was co-produced with Avicii, the great Swedish producer, and let's listen to it. There are so many things that make this an amazing riff. Let's talk about it. First with the rhythm. Like Viva La Vida, this song has a lot of syncopation, a lot of offbeat accents, which you can see here. It's a lot easier to actually feel it than it is to, count it out. So let's try both. First, just saying it on ta, 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 ta. When we count it, we're going to have to do some 16th note subdivision. 1 E and a, 2 B and 3 and 4. 1 E and a, 2 B and 3 and 4. And 1 E and a, 2 B and 3 and 4. And 1 E and a, 2 B and 3 and 4 and. So let's talk about the harmony next. We're in the key of E flat minor. Okay, the relative key to G flat major. And rather than just starting on an E flat minor chord, we're adding in that 7th. Okay, just like we talked about in The Scientist, that minor 7 just adds a little bit more color. It makes it a little bit more just interesting, right? Then we go to this chord. It's kind of like a D flat power chord where we have this flat 7 here. And then I love this next chord. Let's look at this one. This is a C flat chord, which is the 6 in E flat. And we have the root, the 5th, we have here the 9, the 5, and the major 7. So this is a major chord with the 9 and the 7. A really beautiful, colorful chord. And then our next chord here is G flat major. We only have to move the left hand for that one. And then we finish on this beautiful B flat minor chord, with the top note moving a little bit in the melody to add some variety. So here's what we might have expected. That's a very typical progression to go from the 1 to the 6 to the 3 and then to the flat 7. But instead they went to the B flat minor, which again, it's kind of like in clocks how we had that minor 5 chord, right? In this context, it's not functioning modally, but it is cool to have that minor chord there as the 5. So this example, as we talked about, has syncopation, 7th chords, and extensions, these extra colorful notes, and it's just a really fun one to play. I encourage you to learn this, memorize it, and then play along with the track. And I also want to demonstrate it a little bit with the melody so you can see what's happening here. The melody is so simple, it's only 4 notes. But it's how those notes are chosen over the melody. Take a listen. Right there, we're singing the 9th of the chord, a beautiful color. The 7th of the chord, right? We've seen in several of these songs that Coldplay likes to take these adventurous choices with their melodies and to really just color the harmony, to make it full, to make it thoughtful. So thank you so much for joining me in this exploration of Coldplay songs. Again, there are so many to choose from. There are many more that I could have talked about, but these were some of my favorites that I feel like we had to analyze today. If you're interested in understanding pop music and if you want to explore more of this type of content, feel free to check out the website piano-with-jonny.com, where we've got lots of courses that will teach you how to understand popular music and other styles of music on a deeper level.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, be sure to check out piano-with-jonny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels, where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.